Okay, so we're carrying on page 45. We've just got the very end of stave 4 to look at now. We're looking at the bit where on the previous page Scrooge asks to see some tenderness connected with the death, and the Ghost of Christmas Future shows him the death of Tiny Tim, and that is in response to seeing the previous death, which he hasn't yet realised is his own, and actually how people were relieved when he died, and that was the only real emotion that the ghost could show him. So draw a line under that line where it says, Spirit of Tiny Tim, thy childish essence was from God, because that's the end of that section, and then we'll move on to the next one. Spectre, said Scrooge, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was whom we saw lying dead. The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him as before, though at a different time, he thought. Indeed, there seemed no order in these latter visions, save they were in the future, into the resorts of business men, but showed him not himself. Indeed, the spirit did not stay for anything, but went straight on, as to the ends just now desired, until besought by Scrooge to tarry for a moment. This court, said Scrooge, through which we hurry now, is where my place of occupation is, and has been for a length of time. I see the house. Let me behold what I shall be in days to come. The spirit stopped. The hand was pointed elsewhere. The house is yonder, Scrooge exclaimed. Why do you point away? The inexorable finger underwent no change. Scrooge hastened to the window of his office and looked in. It was an office still, but not his. Furniture was not the same, and the figure in the chair was not himself. The phantom pointed, as before. So the main thing here is this idea that it's the ghost is showing him lots of different things, and it's sort of very confusing for Scrooge. He says they're not in time order. It says there seemed no order in these latter visions here. But essentially the main thing is he's showing Scrooge that he's no longer at his place of work, and he's no longer in his house. So we know that sort of something is up. So you can separate that bit off. That's a kind of separate section. And then he takes Scrooge to the churchyard, which is the next really key bit. He joined it once again, and wondering why and whither he had gone, accompanied it until they reached an iron gate. He paused to look round before entering. A churchyard. Here, then, the wretched man whose name he had now to learn lay underneath the ground. It was a worthy place, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds, the growth of vegetation's death, not life, choked up, too much but burying, fat with repleted appetite, a worthy place. So this is ironic, or sort of sarcastic. It's not a worthy place at all. It's very much associated with death. The grass and the weeds are taking over, which implies that no one really visits, no one really cares. And we can see this sort of emphasis on death and everything being kind of choked up and strangled. So very negative kind of description here. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced towards it, trembling. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he saw new meaning in its solemn shape. Before I draw near to that stone to which you point, said Scrooge, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only? Still the ghost pointed downwards to the grave by which it stood. Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends, to which, if persevered in, they must lead, said Scrooge. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me. The spirit was as immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. So there's a few really key bits here. When Scrooge says, are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they the shadows of things that may be? This is really emphasizing that Scrooge wants to change. The fact that these things, if they are things that may be in his future, says that he's got control over them and he can change them. If they are things that will be, sort of much more definite, suggests that he can't change them. And we can call words like may modal verbs. This suggests that it might happen, but might not. They're not definite. So this kind of modal verb phrase, maybe, suggests that he can change. And then Scrooge says men's courses will foreshadow certain ends. And by courses, he means like the direction of their life, their journeys will foreshadow, sort of predicting their end. So if you live your life in a certain way, it's going to predict the kind of end that you may have. And if you carry on in that sort of life, you've got to lead it. But if the courses be departed from, so if you change sort of direction in your life, then the ends will change. So that's what you really need to know. If you change your way of life, you change your future fate. And that is a message for us all, that if we don't like the life that we're living, we just need to change the direction of our life. We need to make a change. But also a reminder that if we stick with leading our life in one way, then we have to accept the fate or the destiny, because we've chosen to live our life in that way. So again, it's that suggestion that it's ultimately our responsibility. So we can add that on there. It's ultimately our responsibility in regards to how we live our lives. So if we're not happy, he's saying, well, make a change, do something about it. That is the message coming from Dickens here. It's our responsibility. We are in control of our own lives. The sort of idea that we're in control of our own destiny. So we can add that actually as well. That's quite a nice idea. We control our destiny. So this is a really key message here in the story, and that's where we're going to get our marks from. If we can really say, well, this is what Dickens was trying to tell us, this is what the big idea is in the story, that will really help. Okay, let's turn over to the last bit. Am I that man who lay upon the bed? He cried upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. No, spirit! Oh, no, no! The finger still was there. Spirit! He cried, tight, clutching at his robe. Hear me! I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. Why show me this if I am past all hope? For the first time the hand appeared to shake. Good spirit, he pursued, as down upon the ground he fell before it. Your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. The kind hand trembled. I will honour Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone. In his agony he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free himself, but he was strong in his entreaty and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. And that is the end of Stave 4. So, few key bits to pick out here. Scrooge says, I am not the man I was. So he's stating there that he's changed. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. He's saying he's going to change because of this kind of journey that he's been on. Why show me this if I'm past all hope? So he wants a chance to change. And he's doing this, it says, as down upon the ground he fell before it. So we've got this idea that he's almost praying or begging, kneeling as he says all these things. And this kind of image of Scrooge kneeling comes up quite a few times in the text, of him sort of really begging for forgiveness. And then he says in this whole idea that, don't show me something if I can't change it. So he wants this chance to be forgiven, to be redeemed. So let's add that as well. But he knows that he can only be forgiven by changing his life. So this idea of redemption, redemption, redemption. And then this is a really key bit at the end. So there's quite a few things to note down here. Where he says, I will honour Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year, what he's really saying is he's going to keep the spirit of Christmas inside him all year round. He wants to be kind and giving and be full of friendship and charity and focused on family and all those things all year round, not just at Christmas time. And this is starting to bring us back to the beginning, really, when Fred says, Christmas is the one time of the year. So we could link that there as well. Put link to stave 1, Fred. And I'm even going to go back and have a look for the quotation actually. So if we skim back through our notes, we can see that Fred comes in here on page 3. So it's page 4, where he says, a good time, a kind, forgiving time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely. And that's on page 4. So we can put that little reference in here if we turn back to page 46. Link to stave 1, Fred, page 4, where he talks about the importance of Christmas. And that's the point, isn't it, really, that it would be great if we could keep the spirit of Christmas alive all year round in society, not just be kind to each other at Christmas time. And then he says, I will live in the past, the present and the future. And so we've got to look at what he means by that. Why would he want to live in the past? Why would he want to live in the present? And why would he want to live in the future? Why does he want to keep these spirits alive? Well, he wants to live in the past because he wants to remember what he was like. He's not going to forget. He wants to keep hold of that lesson. He wants to remember what he was like as a boy. Maybe he wants to remember the old Scrooge so that he doesn't go back. He wants to be influenced also by those positive memories from his sort of far distant past when he was younger. So the idea here is he wants to keep hold of the lesson that he's learned. And that's why he wants to live in the past. He wants to live in the present because he wants to live in the moment and he wants to notice the people around him. And also kind of now he wants to be part of society. He wants to be included. And he wants to be in the future because he wants to think about the future, the kind of person he wants to be. He wants to think about how he wants to be remembered when he does eventually die, now that he's got this second chance. And he wants the opportunity to be good and kind, and to be able to look for opportunities to be good and kind, to help others out in the future. So that's what he means when he says he wants to live in the past, the present and the future. Okay, we'll stop there and there'll be one more video on stave 5.